Good morning, get your horns out, come on. Time is Monday, I live in LA, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. When you send a text message out in Los Angeles for a gig, it's actually a good story while you're getting your horns out. You know Kevin Gibo, right? Yeah, Kevin has got he was one of my students who had a big job with Pershing's own band in Washington. So I get this text from, it was Bill Bing sent it out. Bing. And he sent it out to everybody in LA. It's like, looking for a military trumpet player to do a gig tonight. Please respond immediately. It's for the Tonight Show on Jay Leno. And I'm standing in Bob Malone's shop, right? I'm looking at trumpets, and I get this, and I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, I'm going to text my former student, Kevin, in Washington, D.C. I'm going to tell him, Kevin, you're going to get a phone call within the next 3 minutes. Don't ask questions. You just say, yes, you're going to do it. He said, what is this about? So I got no time. I texted back to Bill Bing. I texted Bill within 1 minute of getting that. Yeah, I've got the guy. Within 30 seconds, Bill calls me. Okay, who's the guy? We need him for the... I said, this is the guy. He's fantastic. He's in Washington. He'll fly out on his own dime. He doesn't want any money for it. Are you sure? Absolutely. 4 minutes later, Kevin calls me and says, what did you get me into? Because he got that phone call. He said, yes, absolutely. Delighted to fly out on my own dime. Well, it turns out he played on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. There was a big superstar singer that he's become very good friends with now who wanted a military trumpeter to stand there in full dress and play the gig. That's how ready you've got to be, people. Whoa. You've got to be that ready. It's church time. Ah, man. I just need more coffee. That was a good story. Anyway, in all seriousness, it's one thing I have noticed since living in LA. When I do text messages or emails to people in different cities where I happen to be, people are often very lazy. Students especially. You know, I figured texting, well, that's immediate. You'll respond right away. They treat texting like email. I'll get to it eventually, maybe. Call me, maybe, that kind of thing. Right. That's what you're going to do. It's like, no. When it's a gig, you answer right away. If you can't do it, you say, thanks for writing. And all the major players, they will do that. If you are lazy and slow, you deserve nothing. Plus, you can destroy your own reputation so quickly and never build it up again if you become either lazy or a slacker or just are irresponsible. You can't rebuild that. And everybody does it. Everybody will make that mistake, and people will bug you about it the rest of your career. They kind of get over it, but they don't forget. All right, everybody got horns out? Good. That's what I like to hear. What we're going to do is about 5 or 6 minutes of, I was mentioning this to you yesterday. Sorry, tell me your name again. Tom. Tom, it's like therapy. Stand up here, Tom. This is Tom, and I talked to Tom yesterday. Tom is an amateur player who played in high school, and then Tom went on to have a big career in archaeology.
Oh, yeah.
Tom then came back to the trumpet just a few years back, didn't he?
Yep.
Let's welcome Tom to our crew. Okay? So when did you start playing again?
2010.
2010, like as an adult.
Yes.
An adult who made money so he could go out and afford to buy good trumpets. Keep that in mind, okay? Just the trumpet career alone ain't going to get you the good stuff. What is this?
It's a 1948 bar.
Of course it is. Woohoo! Don't show that to Vince.
It's also made of nickel, and as far as I know, it's the only one that ever was made out of nickel completely.
And do you know why Tom can have this horn? Because he was an archaeologist, okay? Trumpet players don't have gear like this. We will be talking afterwards. You're going to want to, in fact, look at this.
I don't have one like that.
No, but do you know that horn? Vince knows everything about trumpets.
Well, actually, Malone had one like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the one? Is this it?
I don't know. I got it from Josh Landers in New York City.
This might have been the one. Because
Wow.
Malone had one. He showed it to me, but this is really cool.
That's great. Well, you're going to do your warm-up on...
Wait! This is really cool.
When Vince says you're going to wait, then you're going to wait. You show respect. Thank you, Tom. You can sit down again. That was wonderful. But we chatted very briefly yesterday because I love playing with amateur enthusiasts. They tend to love music a lot more than many professionals, okay? Vince is one of those rare exceptions. I love playing with Vince because he's not lost his childlike enthusiasm, but a lot of pros do. You'll find out about that later. But not Tom. He's rich. He's an archaeologist. He's a 1942 New York Bach. I hate him. Right. So one of the challenges when you're out of school, like when you're in school, you're all meatheads. You're like, I think I'll practice all day. Tom's got responsibilities, okay? He's got a real life. He's making money. He's spending time counting all that money, okay? That is busy. Because you don't have as much time to practice. So if you can't have regular practice time, how do you stay in shape? What kind of things can you do? How many of you have played long tones before? How many? Oh, that's good. How many of you like playing long tones?
Now I do.
Now that's an honest answer. It's like, if you'd all thrown your hands out, I would have said, liars! Sinners and liars! Get out! Anybody that really loves playing long tones probably should be in some therapy, okay? I mean, there is absolutely nothing cool or sexy about going, no. You really are in trouble if that's what you think is cool. Now, a good friend of mine, of ours, a spectacular trumpet player named Walter White. Years ago, and Walter's a great trumpet player, really, really world class. He toured with Maynard, both playing lead and he sounds like Freddie Hubbard when he blows. I mean, really, really a stellar player. And often he would have like 2 or 3 gigs a day playing on Maynard's pen. You're going to be pretty beaten up by the end of that. And he was trying to find a way to sort of get his chops back to ground zero. And he came up with an exercise. When we were students, we were all young and kind and simple. We were 19 years old together up in Banff in the woods. And Walter, who has some of those mental problems, he sat in the woods playing long tones. It was like, that dude's playing long tones all the time. But then he gets up on stage, he's like, who is that dude? Because he plays his butt off. It was Walter. And he'd sort of been doing them his whole life. And then later in his career, he decided to create a background CD. How many of you have ever done the Walter White long tones? Are you aware of them? Yeah, one hand. Good. So he basically created an accompaniment to long tones, which actually is cool to do. Because then you can sit there and play long tones and have this beautiful music sort of vibrating around you. You kind of get lost in your own thoughts and get sort of connected to your instrument. And that's why I really love doing them with this particular background CD. Plus, the benefits to rich people, right over here, that have like cool trumpets and like come back to trumpet because they want to, is that long tones are also great because they're isometrics. Okay, it's like holding a trumpet. You can sit here and say, I'm going to hold that. Eventually, your arms are going to quiver, and that's it. It's going to be game over. And remember, just like working out, when you lift weights, you're not actually getting stronger when you play. Nobody gets stronger when they play. When you finish playing, there's blood flow that goes back to the chops, which repairs what you've been doing. Just like doing weights. You don't get stronger lifting. You get stronger when the muscles, when blood goes to the muscles and they start to build and generate. That's how you get strength. Same principle on the trumpet. Okay, now one of the benefits of long tones and just doing isometrics for people that don't get to play regularly, A, they're fun to do with this background. B, by holding a note, you're working on these muscles here. These are the ones that you want to hold in place. So you grip down on the embouchure and you'll have a nice firm set here. Okay? So they're very easy to do, very effective. They're also great as a warm down at the end of the day. So sometimes I do them at the beginning of the day, and we'll probably do this in the dark. It'll be very cool. I know. And it's a really awesome way to sort of get centered again. And at the end of a long day, even at the end of a super long gig, this is an awesome exercise. So we're going to do it. The tape actually lasts 20 minutes. We're not going to do it. About 4 or 5 minutes, just to get a feel for what it is. And the way it works is that there's 8 bars where you play the long tone, and then 2 bars rest. Okay? Now what you'll notice is probably the first time or two that you play the long tone, you're not going to make it all the way to 8 bars. That's okay. Don't stop and start again. Just put your horn down, listen, you'll feel the count in for the next 8, and then try to extend it as long as possible, because the point is to play it very quietly. Piano at the most. All right? You also get a choice. You can pick a low C or a middle G. Go to the 3rd space C, don't go to the E. No improvisations. This is one long tone. You want to improvise, go get some Ebersalts, okay? This has a different purpose. So what I want you to really center in is the breath, relaxing the body, and then as you adjust in your seat and you get the 2 bars rest, be cognizant of getting the horn off of your face. Now, some of you may have done the Caruso method before. Have you heard of that? Do you like Carusos?
Well, done correctly.
Yeah, that's always the caveat.
And done with moderation.
Right, and most people don't do them correctly, and most people don't do them in moderation.
Yeah.
Hence, I personally find them to be dangerous. It's kind of like having a really awesome sports car. They rented me this Dodge Hemi right now. I got a big 8-banger under there. So that thing fishtails very quickly. Same thing with exercises like Caruso. If you're not careful in doing them correctly, you will cause harm and not good. So if you do get into that methodology, make sure you're studying with somebody who really knows what he or she is talking about, okay? Good. That's enough talk right now. What we're going to do is just start this. You'll figure it out very quickly. Also remember, I do not want you sitting in the backs of your chairs. Remember what I demonstrated yesterday? Everybody saw that? This little thing? So I'm going to play on Vince's mouthpiece.
Yeah.
But if I sit at the front of the chair and my body is loose, aside from the chip note, do you hear more resonance? You should. I could demonstrate it again to prove it, but I don't need to. Trust me. You're going to sit right up here, front edge of the chair. The other ratio you want to take into account if you're sitting, you could stand for it too if you wanted to, but for now we'll just sit. Make sure your knees are below your hip bones, okay? The reason you want that is because you want the hips to actually feel like they're also involved in the idea that your body is loose and relaxed. If your knees are above the hips, you can't do that, okay? And sometimes we just have crappy chairs. These are not concert chairs, but often that will happen. And so you can just put them, you can even wrap your feet underneath each other like that if you want. You know, in the rest, if you want, if you're feeling any fatigue, just sit back for a measure or two and then come back and always have the trumpet floating. The music sort of will help you dictate what that should feel like. But don't grip down. Always feel like you're, I imagine I'm in a giant bowl of jello. It's like you can't move fast, but you're always fluid, all right? It's a long intro. Let's do 4 or 5 minutes of this, and as we get going, I want you to find the lights too, Jason. We'll dim it down to nothing. Okay? Pick either, let's start, we're all going to start on a middle G. Let's do that like twice. And then after that, you can continue playing a G, or you can choose to play a C. It doesn't matter. C is a little bit harder, only because a lower note takes a little more air. So you might find you can't go quite as long on the low C. Enough talk. Let's play, and then we'll chat some further, okay? I gotta start and then, crank the volume. We'll go back to the beginning of this. There's like 4 little chimes, you'll hear them. 2, 1. playing too loud. By this point, you should all be able to do it. G or a C. That's what the cover of that CD is.
Yeah.
Now, what was the book called?
Embouchure Enlightenment by Gene Young.
Embouchure Enlightenment by Gene Young.
And he also has some illustrations that talk about how the air moves.
He's talking about this book, that methodology. I just mentioned Embouchure Development by
Embouchure Enlightenment.
Enlightenment by Gene Young.
And it's out of print, I think, but I've been looking for a copy of it because there's some really good information in there that I remember, and I, of course, lent my copy to somebody.
I've been
and
there.
It's disappeared.
The Google will find it.
I'll get it.
Now, and Vince was saying that there are depictions, arrows pointing forward, sort of all points of the embouchure. That's sort of the idea that Walter had in mind when he developed this particular, it's not that long tones are a new thing, but this is a more creative, relaxing way to do them, because you're focusing in on all these muscles here and just holding them into place. For a real challenge, if you wanted to do some of them and continue to do them, you could, kind of like the Caruso method, keep the trumpet on your face in between. I advocate doing that a little bit. I know I say always off, but it's also an interesting experiment to keep it up there and breathe through the nose. You know, nice and long breath through the nose. So that way you can also feel, try that like 4 or 5 times in a row, and you'll start to feel quivering in your chops. Don't worry, that's not bad, okay? Aches are not a problem. Quivering chops are not a problem. Shooting pain, problem. If you've ever experienced a shooting pain while playing, if you haven't, you probably will at some point, stop whatever you're doing, okay? That's a nerve, and you do not want that. But getting fatigued, even working hard on a gig, that's kind of normal. If you've sort of beaten it up a little bit, this is a great way to sort of unwind from a really, really difficult couple of days of work. And it's okay to take a day off once in a while. I mean, you've really got to know what like really beaten up chops feel like. It's all right, okay? I first got onto this because, you know, I'd be touring with Canadian Brass for 30 days. 30 days, 2.5 hour concerts, different city every night. Boom, the Christmas run, right? That's when you make all your money. It's true, but you're on a train or in a plane every night doing the thing. Do you think on day 31, when I came back home to Toronto, that I was like, honey, I can't wait to practice trumpet today. I got a day off. Hell no! That thing was in the case. I didn't want to look at my trumpet for at least a day, sometimes 2 or 3. When you've really done like a 30-day run, you'll understand what that is. Until you've actually experienced like that, I wouldn't highly recommend it. Nevertheless, point was, as the old axiom goes, 1 day, no one will really notice. 2 days, you'll notice. 3 days, your friends will notice. 4 days, probably everybody will start noticing, okay? There's a ratio. At some point, your muscles break down. Point being, when I had to get back in shape for a Canadian Brass tour, I used these. And I would say to my wife, I'm going to go do some Walters right now. This would be like at midnight with a soft mute. And sometimes I would do a whole hour's worth of this just to sort of try to get back into, okay, I'm about to really hit it tomorrow and I got to be in shape.
Yes.
And for years she would say, what?
Do you know, anybody know another method that starts exactly the same way? That's written by a more unconventional type trumpet player.
Yes, I do.
I bet you do.
I think I do. The gato?
El Gato.
El gato.
Yeah.
And that's where Walter got it from originally.
I thought so.
He did.
Yeah. It's
Cat Anderson.
Cat Anderson did this. He did it for 20 minutes to a half hour.
Exactly.
Started out doing exactly this. And, you know, there's a lot to it.
There is nothing but good that can come from doing proper pianissimo long tones. If anything bad is happening, you've got bigger problems, okay? That might need some real addressing. But this is as friendly a way to be good to your chops and stay in shape, or better yet, get back from a really, really rough night of something so that you actually kind of feel like you found the focusing spot. Anyway, excellent. WalterWhite.com. You can go to his website, find the, they're called, these shiny objects, they're called CDs. Perhaps you've heard of them. I played a concert not too long ago in the gift shop. They were selling vinyl LPs, you know, $20 to $40. Music from the 50s, 60s, rock, disco, opera, everything, jazz records. Paw through, pick what you wanted. Right beside the vinyl, they would have stacks of 4 CDs held together with like twine, and they were selling them for $5 as hipster coasters. There you go. Anyway, I always advocate, buy it if you can, share it because you're going to, you know, whatever, search your own conscience. But it's a spectacular tool, and I highly recommend it. Okay, any questions about that? Yes, please.
You were talking just about the long-term kind of the recovery tool.
Yes?
Do you only see it as something to do the next day, or basically what I'm trying to get at is, what do you guys think about like cooling down after you've done something? Is there
Yeah, no, the answer is yes, absolutely. That exercise is excellent for post-gig playing. Wycliffe Gordon goes a step further. When he was touring with Wynton Marsalis, he said Wynton would tell him, incidentally, let's just start passing these out because this is the next thing we're going to be doing. He would say that Wynton would tell him, when the gig ends, that's when you should practice. So Wycliffe, often at the end of a long night, you know, he still does it at brass band, he'll practice for 45 minutes after a 4-hour rehearsal because you're a little tired and you have to, and you still practice full out because you're trying to teach yourself, you've got to be able to not just go to the finish line but through it. And there's actually a lot to be gained from that too. Now again, that has to be done carefully. One of the biggest problems that we have is bad practice habits. And once you've bruised yourself a little bit or developed a bad habit that just isn't going away, you've got to take 4 steps backwards to undo it. Because remember, the body doesn't recognize a good habit from a bad habit, right? It only recognizes a habit. And that's why doing a simple exercise like that and being very vigilant of how you sit, how you breathe, it's a great way to kind of do a self-tune-up of what are you doing and what are you not doing. Because it's harmless and it really strikes the basics, okay? So yes, an excellent thing to get a hold of. While those are getting handed out, I brought a couple little doodads to show you. Other things that will enhance practice technique. First of all, I highly recommend getting a practice mute. Either that or a cup mute that has a cup on it that you can play really, really tight. Practicing with either a practice mute or a tight cup will encourage you not to blow as hard. And there's a lot a lot that you will gain from doing that, okay? So I have this, as I mentioned, I'm super famous, that's why I have a red one. Oh yeah. Covet it if you want. Anyway, I also have, wait for it, the rarely seen piccolo silent brass mute. So I use that too. Same idea, okay? Working on that is a great way to sort of encourage yourselves not to overblow and get to the concept I was talking about yesterday, like Giuliano Sommerhalder. This guy was a puff, 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 all over the trumpet. I heard him play the Bern Concerto up at Lake Placid. And Mark Gould, my teacher, was standing beside me, and this kid comes up there. Like, perfect. He's 13. And Mark, standing beside me, goes, Jenzy, you hear that? You're listening to your demise. Totally does. Anyway, not playing loud but playing carefully is an awesome way to work on all sorts of things. You'll be able to extend your practice times, etc., etc. One of the little devices that I also use a lot, I used to get, this one you may not have seen. Have you seen that one before? Have a look at it. You know the trumpet player from the late 60s, Walter Kime? K-I-M-E? Yeah.
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 Warren Kime.
Warren, pardon me. We had Walter White. Warren Kime. This is, these are called the Warren Kime lightning fast valves. He was one of those, show players in the late 60s. Good. And it is the simplest of devices. It's a wood block with, you can unscrew these here to change the tension on the springs. I'll tell you where I got that. I used to use these practice valves. They were made in Spain, and I could only find them through Rayburn Music in Boston. And they looked kind of like that. It was like a wood block with kind of, some valves, and then a little plastic insert and a spring. Very simple. I made the large mistake once of thinking, oh, I should oil it. Big mistake. It never works the same way again. I threw that one away. Don't oil them. They're synthetic, okay? The whole point, when I was in high school, we'd take like cheap trumpets and carve it up and just take the valves. We thought that was cool. The problem is, if you're doing a lot of valve work, you end up oiling it so much, it's actually counterproductive. So I found this thing in the middle, made of wood, that I started to really live with a lot. And then they stopped making them. I knew they were just made in Spain. And so I put an announcement out on the Google internet site. I think I put it on Trumpet Herald. And I was looking for these valves because Osmond didn't make them anymore, whoever was making them in Spain, And somebody wrote me privately and said, yeah, I've got one of those. And I said, well, I'll buy it. Send it to me. And he says, no, I've never used it. So he just sent it to me. And it was that. And I'm like, this is not what I had. And then I started researching it. These were also made like way back in the day, and they're not made anymore. I'm actually going to reach out to his family, because he's passed away now, and sort of say, I'd like to make those. Not for... We're going to talk about that. We're not done yet. So...
Okay, I'm ready to give you...
Good. Let's you and I go into business on that. So you can pass this around if you want. Super, super simple idea.
It really is cool.
Can't begin to tell you how important it is to do simple valve work. Now, I started researching a bit because I can't find those anymore. Like whoever happened to have bought them back in the day will have them lying around. So that's just an internet purchase. But then I did a little more research and I came up with this one that I found in Japan. It's called the Valvino. And this is actually quite cute. Because it comes with like typical, like a lot of little packaging. You can order either just the valve casing, or you can order this part, which comes apart like this. It's very cute. You put it together like that. Woo! Isn't that fun, right? And you can slip this on here. Boom! Look at you. You're rocking and rolling, right? That's cute. And it also comes with a second device, which you would plug in here. And then boom! Now you can actually do, and it has like some felt or foam that you can put in for louder or more or less compression. So you can actually practice, trumpet this way. And they're two separate devices, okay? My personal feeling, I totally get why we have to do mouthpiece work. It's critical. I'm not the biggest fan of doing it this way. I've come to that conclusion. There's another set of valves out there. Arturo Sandoval has these things called Sandovalves. And I'm going to say this on record. They're too expensive. You go ahead and quote me on it. I've told it to him his face. It's like, you shouldn't be charging $120 plus shipping for a device that's basically no different than this. This price point's a little better. The whole device, like this, is I think $45 or $50. You add this, it's an extra $20. You're still into like $70, $75 for a clever device, but essentially a piece of plastic. Without this, without doing the top, you're closer, 45, 50 bucks. My feeling is, yeah, if it comes in at around $50 and no more than that, and I know because I poll my students. I showed them that wooden set of valves and this, and without asking them, I said, what would you pay for this? And of course, it goes everywhere from like, oh, I don't know, like 18 bucks to, I think they maxed out around 30. I'd pay $30, $35 tops. That's your market, okay? So you can't be charging $120 for something like that. I love Arturo and I love the concept, but no way. If you go buy that, you're paying too much. Have it if you want, but there's less expensive ways to do it. What's most important, though, is the actual action of sitting there. And that's why I'm not really a fan of using this anymore. I like the little hand grip on here. It's fun. That one doesn't have it at all. But what I like is the idea of being forced to sing. Or whatever it is that you're going to play. Remember, you don't have to have a great singing voice. You don't have to have perfect pitch. But you must be able to at least sing what pitches you're going to play. And then coordinate it with the fingers. A lot of the problems we have on trumpet start right here. This is not talent, people. This is mechanics. All right? Mechanics Coordination 101. Etc., etc. And go through passages just doing fingerings. That's why I sort of try to avoid the mouthpiece, because there's too much temptation, and then you're starting to do other things that aren't focusing on the mechanics of playing. Okay? So you can pass that around too if you want. Super simple devices. I've sort of used them off and on throughout my career since high school, and I should have done a lot more of it, you know, because when I was young, I had a lot more time to do this kind of a thing. It would have been more ingrained in my subconscious mind. So now, you get older, it's like you're kind of playing catch-up. But those things work. I did a recording with flying solo right after I left Canadian Brass. And I wanted to do a bunch of different things on it. My wife played piano. And I gave a lesson to a kid that came over to my house. Slacker. These guy's pants coming down off his butt. It's like walked in. I had no furniture left. We moved to California. I literally had a couple of milk crates. So this slacker sits there. It's like, oh, yeah, what do you want to play, man? So, I don't know, man. I play like a Arben's theme, you know, variations. Okay, cool. I forget what the tune was that he played, but he started playing, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a long hour. Oh, man, oh, man. Tiny tone, airy. It's like, you know, he had some musical phrasing, but it was like, all right. So he spent the first 35, 40 minutes opening up his sound. And then, by 40 minutes or so, it's like breathing properly, did all sorts of fun tricks. I thought, oh, this is great. I said, I'm looking at my watch going, well, lesson's almost over. I can't wait, you know. And then I said, what else would you like to play? Oh, I don't know, I could play last couple variations or something. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't do the actions, but in my heart, I'm thinking, sure, why don't you waste some more of my time, right? And then you know what happened? Old Genzi got schooled. Yeah. This kid sat there, and I forget which one it was in the back of the book. I'm trying to forget it because it was so good. He was like, no breath, no air, perfect finger-tongue coordination. And he finishes, and I go, yeah, that's okay. It's pretty good. Let's try the last variation. He goes, oh, okay. Like, flawless. I'm like, okay, who are you? You know, and I started talking to him. And then I asked him, who do you listen to? I said, do you listen to Sergei Nikaryakov? And this slacker with the pants down off his arse, like all of a sudden his eyes light up, oh yeah, he's my favorite. I listen to all of his stuff. Boom! Then it dawns on me, this 21-year-old kid with really horrible fundamentals and habits had developed something that I affectionately call video game trumpet technique. You know how when you play a video game, your tendency, I've been to driving games, you tend to oversteer. When you get really good at a video game, you realize how little motion is actually involved for any of the other gamers. It's like just a flick. But you have to teach yourself how to do that. Everything is overdone when you first start playing. Well, that's what this kid had. No air, because he was just sort of puffing on the trumpet, but incredible finger-tongue technique. He'd heard it, just figured that's how you should do it, and it had nothing to do with proper anything other than coordination. Enviable coordination. And I said to my wife, she came home, I said, I got to play something on this recording that's going to impress kids because I've seen the future and I'm not it, okay? And I thought, like, it's got to be something like Flight of the Bumblebee. And she's like, oh, Flight of the Bumblebee. Everybody does that. She says, why don't you play the Chopin Etude, Opus 10, number 2, do it on piccolo trumpet, up the octave, and circular breathe. I'm like, yeah, okay, great idea. No. And then she looks at me and she goes, well, I mean, if you can't do it, that's cool. And then she walked away. Oh, woman, it's fight words! So I can't do it anymore because I spent 6 weeks working on this 65-second thing, all on piccolo trumpet. There's a go to the record, you'll hear it, right? And did it the whole, all circular breathing. It was like the only thing I could think of that would maybe impress that next generation. Preparing for that, I used those valves incessantly. I'd go for walks in the park with her. I remember we had one long walk, it was like 2 hours, and I had these valves with me, just absent-mindedly doing it, without thinking about it. I had the tune memorized, and I came back and I picked up my trumpet. It was perfect. And I thought, shit, practicing really does work, There was no horn, there was no philosophizing about the art, it was just the mechanics, up and down. Do you feel your fingers slamming? Do you feel them slamming up? Do you feel them locking? What happens when you really look at a piece of music? Are you aware of what mechanics are involved? This is a great example of a spot that you hear screwed up all over the world. Right there. You know why that passage gets screwed up? Give me some ideas. I know, but why? And it took me a while to figure it out.
What I have trouble with this passage is always the G with the E, because you're not moving your fingers.
The G to the E?
Yeah, and then for G to the E, your first double clicking. That's just me.
You're really super close. Not quite. I want the exact answer. Just keep brainstorming. What do you think it is?
I'd say it has something to do with the unfamiliar intervals.
Nope, nothing to do with that. I'll cut to the chase. You were very, very close. Bum, bum, ba, da, ga, da, ga, da, ga, da. It's from the G flat, or the A flat to the G flat. But what happens? Da, da, ga, da. You're lifting a finger on a strong beat that gets tongue. So if you're slamming a finger down, that's easy to feel. But and not only that, you're lifting the crappiest finger in the world, your third finger, the one that receives the least attention. So when you start going through that and you realize, okay, I'm going to concentrate on the lift right at the moment that I tongue. The rest of it is easy. But that spot right there, all over the planet, people screw it up. And guess what? It's not magic, it's mechanics. So you can look through all sorts of pieces of music and find spots like that where if you're thinking that way, you're already being clever about like what's not working. So just practicing it over and over like a jarhead isn't going to accomplish the result unless you've really thought through what the parameters of difficulty are. Questions about that? To that end, I'm going to show you one of the things and then we're going to play some more. I'm going to be recording, as I said yesterday, Brandenburg 5. So this morning, I did get up at 6 a.m. after having a few root beers, watching Toronto lose by 1 point. But that was it. I got my butt out of bed, started shedding this morning, and well, part of it's pure vanity. This recording that I'm doing is going to be filmed for a documentary, and I didn't want to wear my glasses. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, I got to blow up the music then, because it's like I got to have it like a kiddie size, so I don't wear glasses for the documentary. So the other cats, the piano player wears. I'm getting to that. But here's my real point. The vanity part was the joke. The truth is, when you're working on a piece like this, on an instrument like that, I blew it up not just to see it, but here's what's really important, to see intervallic relationships. Okay? Now, I have students that have perfect pitch. That's a different world. They see a note, they hear it, they can resonate right away. Those of us that don't have that, I often say we actually have the advantage. Because we have to learn, if you want to get good, you have to learn how to feel an interval. Gould called it tasting a note. I didn't understand that for the longest time. They're like, oh, now I get it. And when your music is too small, it's not just, oh, it's small to read, like small. You don't see intervallic relationship. And if you don't see it, you don't feel what a fourth feels like, what a third feels like. Also, write in some accidentals that carry through the bar. I know the B flat carries through the bar, but get through a long passage. If you pencil in B flat, that interval looks, and as a result, it also feels different. So all those kinds of things are things that you do in order to feel the changes. This, again, we're talking advanced concepts, but you're here to learn things about what to do down the road. That's how you start thinking when you're a professional. Why are you holding that still?
I'm modeling the picture you had.
Okay. Oh, that picture.
Oh, the one with the Photoshop?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, where they made me look like I had more hair. That was not true. It was just younger. He's going to make hence. We won't get too far into it. If you want to talk piccolo trumpets, we can talk about that too. This is a... I'm getting sidetracked. Let's play a little bit, and then we'll get to piccolo trumpets. I'd like you to pull that exercise out. The one I'd like you to look at is the one that says flow studies, okay? We're going to play through it very, very carefully. I'll play it first, and what I'll do is I'll conduct you note by note. So it's not, beat. I'm just going to give you one note at a time and show you what it is that I'm working on when I play that. We'll just do a few of them because I know it's kind of awkward without a music stand and such, but do the best you can. And I'll play, this is what I was talking about yesterday, my routine. Very, very simple. I'll play the first one, then I'll explain what I'm thinking about. Now, before you play it, and think, oh, that's like 6 notes, pretty easy. There's a bunch of things taking place. Most trumpet players, unless you have perfect pitch, when we play a note, what do you think the tendency is if we're not going to hit it in the middle? Will we tend to be sharp or flat? Sharp? Sharp, usually is what happens. We're usually buzzing above the note. So the first note is kind of like your practice note. The second one, the semitone down, brings you back to the third note, which is the first note, right? Now if you're doing it correctly, you settle down into that first semitone, and then when you come back to the first note, which is now the third note, you want to think of resonating right in the middle of it. Then the very next note you play goes just above that, then you're back to it. And then each of these end with an arpeggio, a major arpeggio. It's 5th, 3rd, root, which we're going to play very slowly because we want to establish the embouchure set at the 5th and not sag and relax into the root and the 3rd. Okay? One note at a time. Also, I prefer if you start these with breath attacks, not tongue. All right?
Yeah.
There we go. With a classic horn. He's not going to hold it with one hand. Oh, no. Oh, remember, I'm just going to remind you, that last arpeggio, think of establishing the third last note and try to keep your aperture firm. Blow forward with air, don't let it sag to the bottom, okay? And go. And the same as with the Walter White long tones, check your body, make sure you're floating as you play, okay? Is to do a slight lip bend on the very first note. Ah, and then come back to the third by bending into it. Okay, if you haven't done lip bending exercises, they're great. It's a great way to see immediately that you probably are pitching too high. And then when you come back at it, slow down. It's hard to hear when you're all playing, but you can try this on your own. You'll hear the note really resonate. Then go past that, so you hear all the overtones cut out, and you'll hear it go sharp. Watch, this is an example of what it will sound like when you do it. It's really obvious when you go past the sweet spot. I mean, I'm vibrating, I'm probably buzzing a third or a fourth higher. So once you feel where that settled place is, then you start to play there all the time, okay? So let's do this one for fun as a lip bend. Now this next one, you see there's tiny little quarter notes that are written in there. They're meant to be played a little faster, and it's a very small script. I blew it up a little bit at FedEx this morning at 6 a.m. Is there a tenuto marked over the C? Yeah? That sort of delineates, I want you to play that note, not just long, but settle on it. When I started my whole lecture yesterday off talking about playing across the trumpet, this is where it gets critical to understand this concept. Because if you want to start getting into extended range, if you don't understand what we're going to talk about right now, you'll never truly understand how to unlock the upper register. So in other words, we're going to do all the same things we've done up to here. When we get to that C, there's like a little mini fermata. We settle on it, and then we play fairly quickly across, past the G and back to the C, settle there, and then continue the rest of the exercise. Listen up, and I'll show you. Accidentals. I love hearing people read it for the first time. It'll be fun. Same thing, the beat. We resonate and just hesitate on the beat. Oh, it's E natural, right?
No Lydians there.
That's why I backed off. It's an E natural with the part. Yeah. I've seen it played E sharp as well. I'll play the E natural. Pardon me. Start in the mid-register, and we're starting to now get to the outer ranges of things. But our aperture set is going to be in the middle, closer to the top of our golden sixth interval. Same thing here. Most important note is the third note, but now that we're starting to get into ledger lines, you're going to really think forward from that C. Don't look up. That's like the biggest sin. And the sooner you learn this thing memorized, the better, because you won't see things going up and down. You'll just be listening and sensing yourself, okay? One of the things about this exercise is that the way it's written is that you never play over a harmonic break on the instrument, ever. You play through them. When I talk about harmonic breaks, it's that classic, like you got to go from... You're trying to get to the high C, you catch the B flat along the way, and everybody punches to it. This exercise allows you to very smoothly go into those upper harmonics. Now, here's where it's important. We're going to do the B. Stop on the F sharp. That's essentially the end of the exercise as far as your brain is concerned. Then you play across to the B sharp, the G sharp, and then across to the B. It's almost like you slide into the G sharp, and then you go forward to the B, back to the G sharp, and then back to the F sharp, which is where we've ended our exercise. In other words, the G sharp, the B, and the next G sharp they're irrelevant. They're not what's important. Okay, listen carefully. Especially listen carefully between the F sharp and the G sharp. It's almost like you, that's my phone, ignore it. Okay.
I'll answer it.
If it's a gig, yeah, no, it won't be. Almost sliding, that's how small that interval is. And that's critical because if you set up your G sharp correctly, the B will be correct. Okay, listen. Always remember the last three notes too. F sharp, don't worry about the low B. Ready, and. Time. Remember, as much as possible, as we extend technique here and range, keep your bodies relaxed. Now this next one is interesting. So what I would like you to do is play the B flat open. I don't want to play first valve. You see the little zero? That means we're going to play it as an enharmonic. That's why it's really important to settle the F and the G before that, so you're not going up to the B flat, you're coming through it. And then you go through the B flat to the C, through the B flat, back to the G. Listen. But that's okay. Do the best you can with the next one. The C sharp is played second valve. Second valve. We're on which note? Which one are we on? Oh yeah, pardon me, the A.
Yeah.
I know. You try doing a master class in front of one of your heroes. You try it sometime. Shit's not easy, okay? Not seeing it as something you're aiming for, but it's just it's a thing that happens. What's far more important is getting back down the fifth, the octave, and then down to the last arpeggios. So I like to roll through these things instead of that macho thing that we like to do as trumpetists. It's like, da 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 da, ya da da. Leave that for somewhere else. All right, next one. Just do the best you can. Thinking ahead, and the D flat is second valve. The E flat is also second valve. And we'll talk about that when we finish this exercise in 30 seconds. Clear. Try it again. The outer limits, and what I would always encourage is do this as far as you can and then go back to the one you did previously that you could do. Always end with a reinforced idea. And just for kicks, we'll try the last one and then we'll move on to something else, okay? Also, high D's, open, open. chord space C. Ba-da-da-da-da. Down into that and then forward, okay? Ready? And. I promise you that will get better and better as you learn it and memorize it. I make all of my students memorize it because it's like taking vitamin C. I don't want you reading the notes. I want you thinking that this is something you just do in your sleep. You call me at 4 a.m. and I can play that perfectly each time. Okay?
Yeah.
Good. And then just when I really want to muck around a little bit, I extend it one further. It's two of the little things I do. Aspirational thoughts for all of you. The last one, for instance, I'll extend it to, I do go a little fun and go to a G. Just always easy and relaxed, okay? One other thing that you can aspire to is once we start getting to those enharmonic fingerings, the false fingerings, the B flat and the C, you can also, as a little advanced tool, practice your lip trills there. And sometimes I do those, like I'll go to the one that's the B flat to the C, and what I do is I practice a control, accelerando, decelerando. And it's just for fun. And it's to learn how the tongue works and to keep everything super relaxed. Listen to it once and you can imagine it yourselves down the road. You know, something like that, where it's just effortless. And it's like whistling. And if you can control it, the speed going in, the speed at the apex, coming out of it, then you're developing real control over the note. You're not thinking of the two notes. Anyway, it's advanced, but you heard it.
Yeah.
If you've heard it, then you can try to do it someday.
Yes.
Yes.
There's one that I'm going to send you that's I call it the Coloratura soprano exercise. So I go. You just do.
Demonstrate it.
No, see if I can't remember it. Again, like you. A little better than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh. Yeah, that's
See,
advanced.
in the middle note, you can't goose it because it doesn't sound musical. You gotta go.
Yeah.
You put the middle note and you make it soft, like a soprano sings it. See? Think about the notes around the beat.
Right.
And then you extend that exercise can be extended to an octave. So you can do it all the way up to like, that's when I'm practicing that stuff.
Yeah.
I can do one, I'll try. So you keep putting the highest note in the middle of a triplet. So then then you're just lifting the tongue.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
And you can't goose it that way. And you can just, you start out by playing F sharp on top of the staff, and you do a 5-note exercise. Then you can go a 6-note exercise. And the thing that's good about this exercise, which I'm going to send you, okay, is that you can cross-reference the exercises. So if you have trouble playing, like, say, a D sharp on this partial, that would be the 6-note version, right? The high note would be a D sharp. The fingerings don't have to be right. You're just trying to get the sound of the slur. Then, if that doesn't work real well, sometimes then you play the 5-note exercise starting on A flat. And sometimes the E flat will come out. You see?
Yeah.
And then you'll know what it feels like to have the balance right. Then you go back to the other one, and you'll see that note will start coming out.
And what Vince just said is the really, really key word to that exercise, was an extension of what I just showed you. He said you'll understand what it feels like. Okay? If we take this back more to a more rudimentary feeling, let me ask you, if you're talking in the staff, what do you think one of the hardest trills to do is? You already know the answer. In the staff. Which one? C to D. Sucks, right? You always catch the B flat below. It sounds miserable. And I'm going to show you how to do a C to D trill, and when you understand what I'm talking about, and when you feel exactly what I'm talking about, then you'll have the ground elements for the lip trill exercise that I showed you, and the more advanced thing that Vince was just talking about. The truth is, there is no C to D trill. What you do is you find the space in between the two notes. That little slippery spot that's not a C, nor is it a D. It's like a quarter tone. You're like, yeah, but dude, that's out of tune. No, it's not, children, and not child. What it is the perfect place to feel what that space is. It's exactly the same as lip trilling, and you can practice it rudimentarily at your level. So, just show you can try it on your own. It's harder to do when you can't hear yourself, but I'll play it for you so you understand. What I look for is the space in between the C and the D. And when you find that place, you actually have a laser beam in the middle of that. So you're playing neither the top note nor the bottom, you're in the middle, and it sounds perfect. I'm going to throw down right now. I'm going to try anyway. There's a feeling. And when you feel it once, you're like, oh, I get it. And that's with the finger. You're doing the same thing. That's just tongue. I'm not thinking of two notes. Why would I think of two notes? I can't go that fast. Oh, yeah. You can't do that with a finger either. You look like an idiot, you know? So don't be an idiot. Be smart, like me and Vince. Be smart. Be an archaeologist. Buy a cool horn because you can afford it. Okay, any quick questions about that? Good. Last exercise we're going to do, flip the page over. Super simple. When I got to Juilliard, where I studied as a master's student, please note all pretension in my voice, I thought I was pretty good. In fact, Russell Campbell and I were the two students that got in as master's students that year at Juilliard. There was like, 100 people at audition. Mark Gould was my teacher. And I asked Mark years later, because he's a close friend of mine, I said, Mark, I'm a professional now. Come on. I knew I was good, and Russell, we knew we were good, but how did we get in? How did you pick me as one of the students? There were a lot of good people. Like, what were you looking for? And he said, Jenzy, you walked into that room with a giant chip on your shoulder, and all I wanted to do was knock that shit off. That's what I'm looking for.
That's him.
And it is him. But he's also, if you read between the lines, because if you ever meet Mark, he does obnoxious things not to be obnoxious. He does them to see if you're paying attention. Are you thinking? We're not here to debate something. We're here to sort of really talk and think. So he'll say crude things or off-the-wall things and just kind of rattles you, and he loves that. He loves it because he wants to get inside your brain. You have to be ready for that. Not all students are, but you get to a certain point. Like I say to graduate students, why are you calling yourself a student? Okay? You want a little gold star in the Charlier book every week? Bravo, you did so well, Jimmy. Attaboy. Come on. That's high school, middle school. By the time you get to college, start, manning up and womaning up and saying, what do you want to do? Take responsibility. Okay? And you learn that through your undergrad. By the time you're a graduate student, you're now a young pro. A pro with less experience than me, I will treat you as such. End of story. Okay? So the other half of that is that it also encourages you to think. The very first thing my first trumpet teacher said, Jim Thompson at McGill when I studied as a freshman, I'll never forget it, and it's what I tell students now. His very first words were, listen carefully, I am not here to teach you. I'm here to teach you to teach yourself. Now think about that for a minute. Stop blaming your teacher for your problems. Stop blaming other people. My teacher will fix it. My teacher can't fix this. You can't fix it. Your teacher has no responsibility in it whatsoever other than to give you tools that you must use. Okay? Cool. So I get to Juilliard thinking, I'm a somebody. I'm at the J School downtown. Look at me. Woo! That's a Canadian acting excited. Okay? Thank you. And I realized I was missing notes. Like, way too often. I was like, because I'm a happy guy. I'm like, forget about it. It's all right. And then one day you're like, why do you miss notes? You suck. So I came up with this little, it's not profound, it's an extension of the Shoebrook exercises that Thompson had showed me. So I came up with a game that I called the concentration game. And what we do, we're only going to do an abbreviated version of it, but you'll understand entirely. I'll play a quarter note, 3 beats rest, play the quarter note. Again, I repeat it 4 times each measure, then I go on to the next note. And I go all the way through until I'm playing 4 low Gs, 4 Gs on top of the staff, right? Easy. Any middle schooler can do that. These are not difficult notes. The game was, if I chip one note, I stop and I go back and start again. I got to do it perfectly 4 times. When I finish it, woo! Go back and do it again, and I repeat it 3 times. Chip a note, you go back to the beginning of your cycle of 3s. You don't have to go all the way to the beginning. Finish that, then you do 2 notes, and then you reward yourself, hopefully, with just 1 note, exactly as it's written. That translates into exactly, if you do it perfectly, 16 minutes of time, not that much, not a strain on your chops, and as it turns out, by sheer irony, because I added it up one day, it's kind of cool, exactly 1,000 notes. Go figure. So, I'm sitting there as a grad student at Juilliard going, well, Juilliard, I think I'm going to work on my consistency. So I came up with this game, and I said to myself, all right, self, you're not leaving the practice room until you do this right, including the parameters for the game that you've set into place. So an exercise that should take 16 minutes perfectly for a graduate student at Juilliard who should be able to do such a thing, how long do you think I was in that room?
3 hours.
Who said 3 hours? Nope, you're wrong.
Not close.
Closer to 4. 4 hours. Now, there were many times, at first you like chip a few and you're laughing. Ah, all right, I get it. Concentrate. You get a little further down. And you know where you chip the note, right? It's the last one. Or the last 2. Somewhere near the end, you're like, ah! And normally you would say, just go step outside, get a coffee, get some fresh air, breathe, go back in and do it. Oh, no. That wasn't the rule. I said, you're at Juilliard. What do you mean step out of the hallway? What are you going to step out and talk to yourself? You can't play a middle school note? I did not leave that room, and let me tell you something. If you try this exercise and really commit to it, and don't have your phone anywhere near you, okay? You will discover a whole range of emotions about yourself in that room. You'll start playing, and you'll be, as the beats are going by, you're chipping them. My elbow was tense. I'm sure that was weird. So you regroup. You get right to the first time I got through the cycle of 4s, I went, I screamed like grad student playing middle school notes. What makes you so happy? It's because I realized I sucked. And then I did it again. Anyway, so we're going to do an abbreviated version of this. We'll just go with 2 notes, okay? And what also has to happen, we won't do it for now, I'll just use my foot, but you must do this with a metronome. No questions. I don't care how good you think your time is, a metronome is perfect, all right? Find a pleasant sound. Don't get one of those like sounds on a metronome. And also in a perfect world, how many of you own those old school like metronomes that your mom or dad gave you, like the plastic ones with a little red light on it? You still got one? Yeah. I'd like you to take those and burn them, okay? They were cheap anyway, so who cares? No, seriously, I want you to crush and destroy them, have like a little dance if you want, and get rid of them. Those little blip metronomes are the stupidest things ever invented. You want to know why? Because all they do is show blip, blip. They don't show you time. And there's plenty of apps, and they're all free. You must have something where you can see time that sweeps across, like Grandma's, metronome on the piano that has an ichthus point. But just going with a blip is stupid and pointless. If you can see it, almost like a video game, you start to understand parameters of time, okay? Very important. So I'm going to be our pulse point, and what we're going to do, so you kind of hear me and get to play yourselves, I'll play beat 1, and I give myself 3 beats rest. You will answer on beat 3. We're all playing the exact same exercise, but you're going to start 2 beats later. So you 2 will have 3 beats rest and then play the same note. Okay, but you'll hear me play it, then you'll answer it. And then we're going to go on. If you chip a note, just be cognizant of it, all right? I'll start, you come in on beat 3. 2, 3. No, I play first. I'm on beat 1, so I play 1, 2, 3. Pop. You just answer back, okay? You'll know what I'm doing, okay? Me first. Oh yeah, one other little thing before we get too far into it. This is an awesome opportunity to practice on, off your face. You've got 3 beats. That's why the metronome is important. Don't rush. And you want to, it's not a lot of time, but it's enough time to just unlock. It's got to feel like that. Like bagging 3-pointers, okay? A flat. Yes?
Are you doing breath attacks or tongue?
Good question. That's an excellent question, breath attacks or tongue attacks. When you get more advanced at this, I mix them up. I don't care which one you use, but know which one you're going to do before you try to do it. And if you decide to really treat it as a game, know in advance, and if you whiff the note, well, it was your choice, start again. But it's a great thing to go back and forth, try to make your breath sound like your tongue. I don't care. A flat. And we do single notes. Just go one after the other. But this time I'm going to have you start it. Because I don't want you hearing the note beforehand. I want you to start feeling it. You'll get, I know, I got just a little bit of time, but this is good. Because it'll make you imagine what that next note is without hearing it first. All right? So this time you start single notes. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and go. Rush. challenge yourselves, take that home and work on it and have a metronome, because what everybody tends to do is rush. I can feel you doing it. It's like, ah, no, no, no. Have little evil beatbox and be like,
Did you
no.
listen to Jens? What did most of us do wrong? I mean, you got to be really observant when you're doing this. Okay, what did he do properly, and most of us didn't do properly? What?
He played light and soft and not real loud.
He played the same volume. He had a nice end to the note. It didn't waver. He had the right. See, so right away I started to try to do that better because, yeah, because I was with. See, so when there's an example like that, try to think about what you're hearing, because otherwise you're just flailing in the wind,
That's right.
You know.
It's an excellent, fun exercise to do with a friend, because you can do that 1 and 3 thing. It's kind of like a test. You challenge each other, and those are good tests because you're trying to learn from one another. I have to wrap it right now, so I'm just going to finish with some very happy words saying that it was a real delight for me to get to do these 2 master classes. Hope you learned something. Feel free to reach out. I wrote the website there. If you have any further questions, we can follow up that way, and I think there'll be an email chain anyway. So a real delight to work with all of you.
I might say something about this master class is that you notice all the things he talked about are essential points for performance. There's nothing that's just to make you feel better or this or that. Your practice has to be that way. We were talking about that in the first hour, weren't we? About it's your fault if you don't, All these things are very efficient. He hasn't wasted any time of yours, right? Or for himself. He's ready to go. And he's playing on a mouthpiece he never played on.
It's good. Cancer
Pretty
blows. DiMartino zinger. Buy one.
Yep.
Tell Peter I said you get 15% off.
Whoa!
Okay, 5%. Apparently Vince is getting a little back into that.
Listen, man, I made $30 the last quarter.
Woo!
Now, really, this is the things you need to hear. That's why it's important to go to master classes with people. Because, I learn something every master class I go to. Or I rethink something or revisit something that I hadn't thought about in a while. And like I said, I used to go to master classes by all these great players too, and Katala used to go, Vince? Why are you here? And he talked just like that. And I go, I didn't get it all last time. And that was true. He would say things, and they would stay in my head, and I'd be thinking about what he meant, and I'd think I have it, and I'd say, well, he's going to be about 200 miles from where I am. I'm going to make sure they adjust my master class so that I can drive that 200 miles and see his, and then get back and do what I have to do. See, you've got to be that
Just be a permanent student like Vince.
Oh,
be like Vince and you will get better. All right, you will.
I probably should be a lot better.
Let's thank these gentlemen.
Yeah, yeah!